You wake up every morning and the first battle is already waiting for you. It does not wait for your coffee. It does not wait for your mood. It does not wait for your plans. The battle is for your mind. And if you do not understand that, you will spend your life wondering why you love what destroys you and neglect what gives you life. Every morning your mind is not empty ground. It is a field already being worked on by voices, desires, memories, fears, ambitions, disappointments, and sins you never fully put to death. If you do not build your mind deliberately, intentionally, and ruthlessly every morning, something else will gladly do it for you. And it will not be gentle, and it will not be kind. You live in a world that trains you to drift. It tells you that if you feel something strongly enough, it must be true. It tells you that comfort is wisdom and that discipline is cruelty. It tells you that the mind is meant to be entertained, not trained, stimulated, not sanctified, filled with noise rather than truth. And you wonder why you wake up anxious, distracted, restless, weak, easily offended, easily tempted, and easily exhausted. You wonder why your convictions fade the moment pressure comes. You wonder why your prayers are shallow and your obedience is fragile. The problem is not that you are too busy. The problem is that you have not learned to guard the gate of your mind when the day is born. The morning is not neutral. It never has been. When you wake up, you are stepping into a stream that is already moving. And if you do not plant your feet, it will carry you wherever it wants. Your thoughts will default to fear, regret, lust, pride, bitterness, comparison, and self-pity, because those things come naturally to a fallen heart. Holiness does not drift. Truth does not drift. Strength does not drift. A disciplined mind is built, not discovered. If you think you will accidentally become strong, accidentally become wise, accidentally become steadfast, you are already deceived. Building your mind every morning is not about positive thinking. It is not about repeating empty phrases to make yourself feel powerful. It is about confronting reality, starting with the reality of who you are and who you are not. You are not self-sufficient. You are not morally neutral. You are not as strong as you think you are. Left to yourself, you will choose the path of least resistance every time, and that path always leads downhill. Building your mind begins with humility, with the clear-eyed confession that you are capable of great evil if you are not restrained by truth and disciplined by purpose. Every morning you must remind yourself of what is true before the world lies to you. You must remind yourself that your life is not about your comfort, but about obedience. That your time is not your own to waste. That your thoughts are not free to wander wherever they please. That your emotions are servants, not masters. If you do not speak truth to yourself early, your feelings will preach to you all day long, and they are terrible preachers. They exaggerate pain, minimize responsibility, justify sin, and promise joy where there is only emptiness. You say you want to grow, but growth requires violence against the old ways of thinking that feel familiar and safe. You must tear down mental strongholds that have been built over years of compromise. Excuses you have protected, rationalizations you have rehearsed, lies you have repeated so often they sound like wisdom. Building your mind every morning means you wake up ready to fight your own thoughts, not pamper them. You interrogate them. You ask them where they came from and where they are leading you. You do not assume that every thought deserves a home simply because it showed up. Discipline in the morning is a declaration of war against laziness of the soul. When you choose to rise and set your mind intentionally, you are saying that you will not be ruled by impulse. You are saying that today will not be governed by whatever shouts the loudest. You are saying that there is something more valuable than immediate pleasure and something more important than temporary relief. This kind of discipline is not glamorous. No one applauds it. No one sees it. And that is precisely why it is powerful. What is built in secret shapes everything that is seen in public. Your mind is the command center of your life. What you allow there will determine how you speak, how you act, how you love, how you endure suffering, and how you respond to temptation. You cannot live one way while thinking another. Eventually, your life will bow to your thoughts. That is why the morning matters so much. It is the time when your defenses are low, but your direction is still undecided. It is the moment when you can choose what will govern the hours ahead. You must learn to sit with truth, even when it makes you uncomfortable, especially when it makes you uncomfortable. A mind that is never challenged will become arrogant or fragile, often both at the same time. You must expose yourself to truth that corrects you, confronts you, and contradicts you. Truth that does not flatter your ego or excuse your sin. Truth that reminds you that you are accountable for how you live, that your choices matter, that your actions echo beyond the moment. Building your mind every morning also means learning to think deeply rather than constantly reacting. The world trains you to respond instantly, emotionally, and publicly. But wisdom grows in silence, in reflection, in careful consideration. When you rush through your mornings, scrolling, consuming, and reacting, you are training your mind to be shallow. You are teaching it that depth is unnecessary and patience is optional. Then you are surprised when you cannot endure hardship or remain faithful when things get difficult. You cannot feed your mind on trivial things all morning and expect it to stand firm in the afternoon. You cannot saturate your thoughts with noise and expect clarity when decisions must be made. What you plant early will bear fruit later. This is not mystical. It is not complicated. It is painfully simple. You reap what you sow, and the morning is prime soil. There is also a moral urgency to this that you must not ignore. A neglected mind does not stay neutral. It deteriorates. When you do not intentionally pursue what is good and true, your mind will slowly align itself with whatever is easiest and most pleasing. Over time, what once troubled your conscience will stop bothering you. What once shocked you will amuse you. What once convicted you will be justified. This does not happen overnight. It happens through thousands of unguarded mornings. You were not created to be a slave to your thoughts. You were created to steward them. That stewardship requires effort, vigilance, and perseverance. Some mornings will feel dry. Some mornings will feel like a struggle just to focus. That does not mean the discipline is failing. That is the discipline working. Muscles do not grow because lifting is easy. They grow because resistance is applied again and again. The same is true of the mind. Do not wait until you feel motivated. Motivation is a terrible master and a poor servant. Build your mind because it is right, not because it feels good. There will be days when everything in you wants to avoid the work, when your thoughts feel chaotic and your heart feels dull. Those are the days when building your mind matters most. Those are the days when you are laying foundations that will hold you up when storms come. You must also understand that building your mind every morning is an act of love, not only for yourself, but for others. A disciplined mind produces patience. A trained mind produces clarity. A grounded mind produces stability. The people in your life are affected by the quality of your thinking. Your family, your friends, your community all feel the consequences of whether you have taken responsibility for your inner life or abandoned it to chance. If you do not build your mind, you will become reactive instead of responsive. You will lash out instead of speaking wisely. You will withdraw instead of standing firm. You will blame instead of repenting. You will demand grace for yourself and deny it to others. This is not because you are uniquely flawed. It is because an undisciplined mind always bends toward selfishness. Building your mind requires repetition. Truth must be revisited, rehearsed, and reinforced. You do not outgrow the basics. You deepen them. You remind yourself daily of what matters most because your heart is quick to forget. You remind yourself of your purpose because distraction is relentless. You remind yourself of truth because lies are persistent. You will never regret the mornings you guarded, but you will regret the years you drifted. You will never look back and say you thought too carefully, loved truth too deeply, or exercised too much discipline. But you will look back and see how many problems could have been avoided if you had taken your thoughts seriously earlier. This is not about becoming cold or rigid. A disciplined mind is not a hardened mind. It is a free mind. It is free from being dragged around by every impulse and emotion. It is free to choose what is right even when it is costly. It is free to love sacrificially because it is not enslaved to self. True freedom is not the absence of restraint, but the presence of the right restraint. Every morning you are given a small window of opportunity, a chance to set the tone, to align your thoughts with truth, to remember who you are called to be. Do not waste it. Do not treat it casually. Do not assume it will always be there. Life is fragile. Habits are powerful. Direction is set one day at a time. You do not need more information. You need more obedience. You do not need more inspiration. You need more discipline. You do not need to wait for the perfect routine. You need to start where you are and be faithful with what you have. Build your mind with seriousness, with humility, with perseverance. Guard it as something precious because it is. And when you fail, because you will fail, do not abandon the work. Failure is not a reason to quit. It is a reminder of why the work matters. Return to the discipline. Return to the truth. Return to the task of shaping your thoughts rather than surrendering them. The mind you build in the morning will determine the life you live by night. Strength is forged long before it is needed. Wisdom is stored up long before it is displayed. Character is formed in the quiet hours when no one is watching and no one is applauding. So rise with intention. Think with clarity. Submit your thoughts to truth. Refuse to let the day decide who you will be. Build your mind again and again, morning after morning, not because it is easy, not because it is exciting, but because your life depends on it, and so do the lives of those you touch. And if you neglect this work, you will slowly become someone you never intended to be, carried by currents you never chose, wondering when you lost your strength, your joy, your clarity, while the answer was waiting for you every morning in the quiet moment when you decided whether to fight for your mind or surrender it to whatever came next. Your mind is the primary battlefield, whether you acknowledge it or not. And every single morning you wake up, you are stepping onto contested ground. The moment consciousness returns, forces are already at work trying to claim authority over your thoughts. Old fears rise up before your feet even touch the floor. Regrets from the past whisper accusations. Anxieties about the future begin rehearsing worst-case scenarios. Desires demand satisfaction. Comfort pleads for delay. Distraction offers itself as relief. None of this is accidental, and none of it is harmless. If you do not intentionally take control of your mind in those early moments, you are not choosing peace or rest. You are surrendering territory. The greatest deception you can believe is that your thoughts are neutral or harmless until you act on them. Thought is the seed of action. Long before a habit forms in behavior, it is nurtured in the mind. Long before compromise becomes visible, it is justified internally. Long before courage is absent in the moment of trial, it was neglected in the quiet place of thinking. The mind is where direction is set, and direction determines destiny. You do not wake up one day and suddenly lose your way. You drift there, thought by thought, morning by morning. Every morning you are given a choice, though it often feels like none exists. You can either govern your mind or be governed by it. You can either command your thoughts or obey them. There is no third option. You cannot leave the throne empty and expect peace to reign. If you do not deliberately place truth, discipline, and purpose at the center of your thinking, something else will take that place, and it will not ask your permission. Your emotions will gladly rule you if you let them, and emotions make terrible kings. They change with circumstances. They exaggerate pain and minimize responsibility. They demand immediate relief without concern for long-term cost. Taking control of your mind every morning does not mean suppressing thoughts or pretending difficulty does not exist. It means facing reality with clarity instead of reacting to it with panic. It means deciding what is true before fear has a chance to redefine it. When you do not do this, fear becomes your interpreter of reality. Everything is filtered through threat and insecurity. Challenges become catastrophes. Correction becomes rejection. Delay becomes failure. You end up exhausted not because life is too heavy, but because your mind is carrying burdens it was never meant to carry. The mind is powerful, but it is also impressionable. Whatever it is exposed to repeatedly will begin to feel normal reasonable, even inevitable. If your mornings are filled with chaos, noise, and mindless consumption, you are training your mind to crave stimulation rather than depth. You are teaching it to avoid stillness and resist focus. Over time, this weakens your ability to think clearly, endure discomfort, and remain steady under pressure. Then when life demands wisdom, patience, or courage, you find yourself empty, wondering why everything feels overwhelming. Intentional control of the mind requires effort precisely because the natural tendency is toward passivity. It is easier to scroll than to think, easier to react than to reflect, easier to follow impulses than to challenge them. But ease is not your friend in this battle. What is easy rarely makes you strong. Strength is formed by resistance, and mental strength is no exception. Each morning you must apply resistance to lazy thinking, undisciplined habits, and unexamined assumptions. You must slow yourself down enough to ask whether your thoughts are leading you toward truth or away from it. Many people believe their greatest enemy is external circumstances, but more often it is their internal narrative. The story they tell themselves about who they are, what they deserve, and what they are capable of becomes the lens through which they live. If that story is built on fear, self-pity, pride, or entitlement, it will quietly sabotage every good intention. Taking control of your mind means rewriting that narrative according to truth rather than feeling. It means refusing to let yesterday's failures define today's obedience or tomorrow's possibilities. Morning is the most strategic time for this work because it is when the mind is most open and most vulnerable. Before the demands of the day rush in, before voices multiply, before fatigue dulls discernment, there is a narrow window where direction can be set. What you choose to think about first matters more than you realize. It establishes priority. It signals to your mind what deserves attention and what does not. When you begin the day intentionally, you are less likely to be pulled off course when pressure comes. This control is not about rigidity or emotional numbness. It is about alignment. Your thoughts, values, and actions must move in the same direction if your life is to have coherence. A divided mind is a restless mind. When you think one way but live another, internal tension builds, guilt grows, confusion spreads, you become inconsistent, unpredictable, easily shaken. Bringing your mind under discipline brings unity. It creates inner order. It allows you to respond rather than react, to choose rather than drift. There is also a moral dimension to this battle that cannot be ignored. What you repeatedly allow in your thoughts shapes your conscience. A mind left unchecked will slowly redefine right and wrong to accommodate comfort and desire. Small compromises in thinking prepare the way for larger compromises in action. Justifications form quietly. Standards are lowered subtly. What once would have been resisted becomes tolerated, then defended. This erosion rarely feels dramatic, which is why it is so dangerous. It feels reasonable every step of the way. Taking control of your mind every morning is an act of responsibility. It is acknowledging that you are accountable not only for what you do, but for what you dwell on. It is recognizing that discipline is not oppression but protection. Boundaries in thinking do not shrink your life. They preserve it. They keep you from being consumed by things that promise fulfillment but deliver emptiness. They keep you from being ruled by impulses that feel urgent but leave you weaker afterward. There will be resistance to this practice, both internal and external. Internally, you will face boredom, distraction, and impatience. Your mind will wander. It will try to escape the discomfort of focus. Externally, the world will constantly invite you to give your attention away. Everything competes for your thoughts because attention is power. Whatever holds your attention shapes you. Reclaiming control means deciding that your mind is too valuable to be handed over carelessly. You may not see immediate results, and that can be discouraging. Mental discipline is cumulative. Like strengthening a muscle, progress is gradual and often invisible in the early stages. But over time, something changes. You become harder to manipulate emotionally, less reactive to provocation, more stable under stress. You begin to notice that situations which once overwhelmed you no longer have the same power. This is not because life became easier, but because your mind became stronger. Failure in this area is inevitable at times. There will be mornings when you lose the battle early, when old patterns reassert themselves before you realize what is happening. The temptation is to give up, to label yourself inconsistent or incapable. That response only deepens the problem. Control of the mind is not proven by never failing, but by returning to discipline after failure. Each return reinforces the truth that your thoughts do not own you, even when they wander. A controlled mind does not mean a joyless life. In fact, it is the opposite. Chaos in thinking produces anxiety, resentment, and dissatisfaction. Order in thinking produces peace, gratitude, and clarity. When your mind is anchored, you are better able to enjoy what is good without being enslaved by it. You can face difficulty without being crushed by it. You can endure waiting without becoming bitter. You can engage deeply with life instead of being constantly overwhelmed by it. The battle for the mind is not won once and for all. It is fought daily, sometimes hourly, but the morning sets the tone. When you choose to take control early, you are not guaranteeing a perfect day, but you are giving yourself a fighting chance. You are choosing to lead yourself rather than abandon yourself to impulse. You are declaring that your life will be shaped by intention, not accident by truth, not emotion by discipline, not drift